Welcome back. The battle, if that's the right word, continues in Wisconsin. The state legislature and the governor have decided that maybe they can get some work done without those missing Democrats, like giving away the state utilities to, well, selling them at whatever price they decide with no bid contracts to their crony buddies that got them into office, that are keeping them there, among other things. That's very interesting stuff going on. I mean, could it be that this really wasn't even about the unions in the first place? I don't know. We'll get back to that topic. And what's going on in Libya, the situation is rather fluid. We're still not sure where Mr. Gaddafi is, other than that he has an umbrella. And Victor Davis Hanson is on the line with us, senior fellow in residence at the Hoover Institution, nationally syndicated columnist for Tribune Media Services, contributor to Pajamas Media, Victor Hanson, SON.com. His website, the author of The Father of Us All, makers of Ancient Strategy. I'm looking at his website right now. Some great stuff there. Victor, welcome to the program.
Welcome. Thank you for having me.
You write this article. I found it fascinating. Decline is in the mind. And you want to just summarize it?
Well, I was just trying to summarize what we see with so-called successful societies in ancient Greece and Rome, and in medieval and Renaissance Europe, Britain, France, in the 17th and 18th. Usually you don't really see barbarians coming across the proverbial border that destroy a civilization. Usually there's preconditions within the civilization, and they're not necessarily fated. I mean, Greece in 480 is a very impoverished country, and it can stop 250,000 Persians from destroying it. In 350 to 338 BC, it's quite affluent, and yet it can't stop 30,000 Macedonians. So there has to be internal changes, and a lot of time it has to do with the same sort of problems that we're seeing today, mostly debt and the inability of people to pay for or to create a society that's physically responsible. And usually the classical symptoms are a debased currency, cancellation of debts, manipulations in currency markets, things like that. So
when all of this started in the Reagan years, when Jude Wanniski first came out in 74 or 78 with his two Santa Claus theory, which was adopted and embraced, in fact, by the Reagan White House, that for 40 years, the Democrats had gained political power by being the Santa Claus of unemployment benefits and Social Security and things like that, and that it was time for the Republicans to be Santa Claus with tax cuts, and that if they did that consistently and big enough, if they thought big enough, if they wiped out the federal budget, then in the next cycle around when the Republicans came into power or Democrats came into power, they wouldn't be able to be Santa Claus anymore because there'd be no money left. Why didn't you guys decry that at that time? Where were the people who are now yelling and screaming about, you know, the $14 trillion debt, $9.5 trillion of it was run up by 3 Republican presidents? Where were you guys back then?
Well, there's a couple things. One is the Reagan theory of starving. I was against that, starving the beast. That idea was if you cut taxes, the revenue would force needed entitlement change. The counterpart of that is gorge the beast, and that is if you run up gigantic deficits, then you'll have to raise taxes. So
no, the counterpart of that is what the president of the Cato Institute laid out, which is that when you go into deficit spending, the apparent cost to government is less, and so people demand more of it, consume more of it, and when government actually costs what it costs, people will actually demand less of it and consume less of it, and it won't grow as rapidly. The reason that...
Well, I think what the paradigm we're under now is that we're addressing perceived needs, not the ability to pay for it. And the reason is one of magnitude. If you look at the GDP percentage of debt versus the economy, I don't think we've seen, and this is not my view, it's not, I think, it's a fact that we have not seen this level of indebtedness, either aggregate in three budget years or in annual deficits as percentage of GDP, 1.6. So whatever you...
Or go back and look at 1944.
I did. That's what I'm saying.
It was 126% of GDP. We're at under 100% of GDP.
You interrupted me. I said, we have not seen this level of debt, and I was just about to say since World War II, and there's a great difference.
My apologies.
Yeah, there's a great difference. When we came out of World War II, we had 126% of GDP, but all of the potential rivals for manufacturing markets, energy markets, etc., in the United States were flat, and Russia was destroyed. It had been destroyed by the Wehrmacht. Germany was in shambles. Japan was in shambles. France had been occupied and had suffered terrible wartime damage. England had done a lot of things that made it less competitive. And so essentially, until those economies rebounded, and they didn't until the mid-1950s, if you look at all of the manufacturing sectors, from auto to steel to energy production, oil, the United States had a monopoly. And so if you look very carefully at Truman and Eisenhower years, we incrementally paid back a lot of that debt.
No, we paid back that debt by growing. I'll agree with you on that. But if you look at the trade numbers, our trade went from around 3% of GDP or around 5% of GDP during that period of time. Most of the growth that happened in the United States was internal demand. It was because people came back to good paying jobs. You had the GI Bill of Rights. And people could buy houses. People could go to school. You had widespread unionization, 35% unionization.
I think everybody agrees.
And there was a lot of demand. We grew our way out of it with internal consumption.
There was also a trade surplus, and we were earning real.
Certainly, we had a trade surplus for 100 years.
Yeah, and we were also self-sufficient in energy production. We weren't spending $1 trillion.
We were. You're right. Until '74. So again, where were you guys back? When George Herbert Walker Bush and Bill Clinton were saying, "Okay, let's just kick open the doors and start a trade policy that repudiates what Alexander Hamilton advocated in 1791, what George Washington adopted in 1793, and that stood until Ronald Reagan started taking it apart."
No, that was inevitable, because what was happening in the 1970s was westernization under the guise of what we call globalization. And what happened is that massive numbers of people, which eventually ended up 1 billion in China and 1 billion in India and 1 billion out in Latin America and in Asia, began to adopt Western modes of,
But that has nothing to do with our trade policies. I mean, Germany, look at what Germany's doing. They're playing the same game that South Korea and Taiwan are doing. They have VAT taxes where they add. You still there, Victor? Victor? Oh, he's gone. Okay, we've lost him.
Thailand.
You're back.
You can't.
Okay.
You can't.
Huh.
And
but look at what Germany. I mean, Germany's still a net exporter. I mean, and they're doing it because what they do is they say, okay, if they have a VAT tax, if there's 15% VAT tax in a product when you export it, you're going to get it refunded back. It's a reverse tariff. We abandoned tariffs altogether, and our competitors are putting reverse tariffs on basically anything that they're exporting to us, reducing the cost of their exports. Well, we have no trade policy anymore. We have no national manufacturing policy.
And I agree that the United States has not pressured its allies, but Germany is in some ways, Germany is in more precarious positions than we are, because they had a mercantile export policy within the EU, and where they knowingly lent money to places like Italy and Portugal and Spain and Ireland, and especially places like Greece, in expectation that they would use borrowed money at cheap interest to buy German manufactured goods. Athens had more Mercedes per capita than any city in the United States. And what happened? They went broke. And I think Germany is much more precarious than we are.
Well, I don't disagree. And that's why I'm in favor of national boundaries, membranes, economic membranes. Anyhow, Victor Davis Hanson, always interesting to talk with you. Thanks for dropping by.
Thank you.
Victor Hanson, SON.com, the website.